Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to contain my first ever clear of Legend difficulty of Kaiyan. This is the solo variant of the fight. I haven't checked out co-op just yet, so I won't be able to comment on that. But I spent some time today running this about 10 times or so, getting my first clear in about that many runs, so interesting challenge. It's our new light element endgame content, and I found it to be pretty fun so far. I think it improves upon some things from master difficulty of Kaiyan in that more adventurers are accessible. You're able to use a wider variety of characters, and at the same time it's a little bit more technically difficult than the master difficulty, so they up the challenge while also opening it up to more characters by not requiring quite as much pressure on dispel. So overall, really like the fight. It's probably a step below Volk for me, just because Volk is still my number one Akito. Probably tied with Tartarus at this point, because I do love Tartarus, but Volk is just the OG. So this has been a pretty cool fight as our second ever Legend fight. I would imagine a lot more complicated in co-op. Some of the mechanics that I experienced in solo didn't really seem to do much of anything in solo, such as how all the characters will get like a sun or moon over them, and there will be different zones on the battlefield. I think that actually matters a lot more in co-op because you might get different icons across your team. And there are other mechanics that I think happen in co-op that don't happen in solo at all, so this solo clear is actually pretty chill comparatively. I think Berserk Volk took me longer to try to figure out and work my head around than this battle. One of the cool things about it is that, as I said, you don't need as much dispel, so while you can use a typical comp like I have here with Belina and Grace and Patia, that's a very safe comp, especially with Dragalia Victor for defense as well, you can also use other characters in the lead slot, like Yaten is a nice one. You can use Gala Alex, I know she's quite popular, a lot of players have her. I ended up going with my tried and true. I am a fan of Belina, and never really focused on building Gala Alex since I didn't happen to summon her right when she came out, got her much later on, actually just late last year. So this is a character I'm used to playing, but one of the things I found cool about this fight was it actually had me rethink a little bit of how I played Belina. I have to admit, some of this was just improv because it was my first clear, so it wasn't exactly fully intentional, but I think if I were to grind this up more in solo, which I don't exactly plan to do. I plan to do one clear a week just for the weekly chest. But if I were to play this a little bit more, I do think it actually tests different abilities than Master does, in the sense that in Berserk, you can't really deal that much damage. You want to be force striking, and well, when Belina's in her Dragon Drive state, she's not especially good at that. So for the first time in Kaiyan, I actually found myself wanting to intentionally oscillate in and out of states, and I think if I were really to get into this, there would even be more of an element of HP management with Belina as well. That wasn't something I really prioritized. I was mostly prioritizing survival, but as you can see, her HP is pretty high right now, so I might actually want to leave Dragon Drive at this point in time to get my second skill to lower my HP for break to deal even more damage. But really, when I was in the middle of this, I was just focused on not dying, and I have to say, compared to Volk, Kaiyan feels a lot less lethal here. I'm sure that Grace is a large part of that, although I wouldn't be surprised if you could easily clear this with other healers, or perhaps not easily, but at least doable if you know when to dispel. But Grace definitely sponged a lot, and just AI dodging super well sponged a lot of what seemed like they would be lethal attacks once I got to the Berserk phase, so that definitely surprised me. And just in general, how quickly Kaiyan's HP is going down here kind of surprised me. I think part of the reason for that is Kaiyan doesn't drain your life in the way that Volk does, and I think that does add up over time. Another thing that made this a little bit easier to sort of grasp as a brand new player to this was in Volk you have that phase 1 that is similar to expert difficulty, and it can be obnoxious if you're not used to managing your AI through it. So we hit Berserk at this point, 5 minutes, 29 seconds left, and I intentionally left Dragon Drive. A little risky, want to make sure Grace does get that first dispel, but what I found is since these orbs are hit-based, I feel like I can get more hits more quickly when I'm not in Dragon Drive, It's also going to let me charge up another S2, and I can switch to Dragon Drive at any point if needed. But here, I'm not iframing that many things, and my AI are relatively unscathed. So that did surprise me. I expected them to just die immediately to some of Kaiyan's hits there. And here, I accidentally fell out of Dragon Drive, but really I want to be force striking as much as possible unless I have a need to be in Dragon Drive. When I saw this weak point, I felt like I did have a need and wanted to make sure that I didn't lose to that. But then shifted out of Dragon Drive so I could start force striking again. And I have to admit, this is another mechanic. I don't really know how these work. I referred to them as suns and moons earlier. It's kind of just like a shadowy dark cloud and a light cloud. I have been just staying in the one that matches my color. I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do, but that worked for me. And when they're in, when Kaiyan is in Berserk, they rotate as well. So it didn't seem to affect me. It didn't really affect my AI. I kind of just let it happen, and it seemed totally fine. I remembered from an earlier failure that he was going to put up a barrier there, so I wanted to make sure I had my dispel available before I went into non-Dragon Drive form, and then just tried to get these orbs down as fast as I could. Luckily there was able to do so, but as you can see, I wasn't really iframing or protecting my AI super well. They just kind of made it, and they kind of did the thing. As for my worm prints, I'll show them after this, but initially I went with pretty defensive prints, like light resistance, etc., and I landed somewhere in the middle. I think if I had gone a little more offensive here, or been a bit better at managing Belina, probably could have cleared a little bit faster and maybe even do this relatively comfortably in the future. But for a first time, I don't think it was too bad, so I'm not sure why I left the arena here. I think I was thinking both would be purple, but I probably could have stayed in. Here I definitely want to leave, and I accidentally stayed in. And that move had killed my runs in the past because several of my AI didn't get out, and then I got locked out with not having dispel on a shield. But at this point, I felt pretty good. I was ready to just unleash as much as possible. Obviously didn't want to accidentally lose somebody to swipe, so I even used my Agito skill there to get an extra iframe, try to bait the other swipes in the opposite direction of my AI, but really put them square in the middle of one swipe there for sure. Belina's HP has gone up a good deal at this point, so she's relatively healthy here, which is going to hurt her damage, but I still feel pretty comfortable at this point. The overdrive gauge is going down relatively fast with her dagger 4 strikes. They're not sword 4 strikes like on Yaten or Gala Alex, but they're still pretty solid. And I even think you could use a character like Gala Shell for this, although it might be hard to fit on your team. I didn't use any poison here, or poison punish or anything, so maybe it's easier than I might give it credit for. I thought you would need to have some type of Punisher enabler. It seems like you don't. So perhaps you could throw in over Dragonule Victor. But yeah, that was basically the run. And there I leave Dragon Drive and collect my treasure chests right around 8 minutes, 7 minutes 59 seconds. And I think I'm just going to retire on this for the week and wait for Persona, finish up my Battle Royale, collect all the points for that for the month, and just kind of chill and do this one slowly. I might wait a week or so to check out co-op, since there's all this other stuff going on in Dragalia Lost right now. Still have to check out Omega for the raid event as well, but was pretty pleased with this overall. I'd definitely be curious what you think, what types of teams you used in the comments below. Certainly had some less consistent runs where I found Grace would sort of just die seemingly at a random point, although usually to purple AoEs, and had some failures like that, but in general, I had 3 or 4 runs toward the clear where I was getting toward Berserk relatively consistently, so I feel like this one isn't too bad. Here's the dragons I used, the adventures I used. Ended up using Cat Sith on Patia. I don't have Azazel at all, so I thought that might be a good dragon because she doesn't use damage dealing skills that much, so I felt like she would have plenty of stacks on Cat for her damage dealing bleed. These are the worm prints I used. As you can see, no poison punisher, but I focused on double buffing, and Patia being my main enabler with Grace also sort of an enabler here. Threw on some skill haste. I mean, this was kind of a mismatch of things, probably not optimal. On Grace, just threw on the United Haste. I don't even know if that works right now, if it's bugged. Light res. I realized she didn't need Chocolatiers and Rogue's Banquet, so I figured 50% was good enough and I could just do something else with the other slot. For dragons, Fatalis on Belina for that 4-strike action, and since she's mainly for iframes, Katsith on Patia, Nidhogg, my best dragon for Grace at the moment, and for Dragoneel Victor, I used Shinobi. That's pretty much it. That was my team. One thing that did come in handy, got the tomes for this from the recent Coliseum event. Sanoa's shared skill gave me some nice max HP buffs. But that is pretty much going to do it for today, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this quick look at Legend difficulty of Kaiyan and the solo battle for that. Let me know how it went for you in the comments below. Thank you as always for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.